Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me, it's Mr. Andrew Meadows.
Colton Brown, how are you this afternoon?
Doing fine. It is finally another bonus episode coming at our listeners. It's been a long time coming. It's been many months coming, I should say. And we are not here alone. Joining us for our 22nd bonus episode, it is Dr. Henrique Jaime. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
Well, hello there. I'm pretty good, gentlemen. How y'all doing?
Doing pretty good. I'm sitting here with a bottle of 1924.
Oh,
double
okay.
black red blend wine.
All right.
I've got some Belgian beer action on my end.
Nice.
Very nice. And I'm joining you from far away with a Florida Man IPA.
Beautiful.
Little Cigar City goodness.
Yeah.
That's it.
Alrighty.
Well, this bonus episode is kind of an interesting one. Obviously, we are in the midst of a pandemic, a COVID-19 pandemic, and we'd been tinkering with the idea of doing a bonus episode kind of centered around films that involve viruses, appropriately enough, and we kind of culled it down to 6 films that we're going to be talking about on this episode, and wildly different films, all obviously touch on viruses in their own unique way, I guess I could say, but I like that we have such a diversity in a lot of the films that we're going to talk about. They span decades, literally, in terms of when they were made and released, different genres. So there's a lot going on here. Before we kind of get into the goodies, I guess I should say, no news. It's a bonus episode. I should remind everyone. I know it's been a while since Andrew and I have even recorded a bonus episode. I do want to say, just as a point of note for what our bonus episodes are, they are Patreon timed exclusives, and how that works is if you support us on Patreon, like Dr. Jaime does, for $2 a month, you get access to our timed exclusive bonus episodes. They're usually up for, we like to put them up there for about a month or so before they leave the Patreon service and head to our regular platform. And then you can listen to them at that point. So it's just basically a little bit of a bonus for anyone that wants to support the podcast. We really just have Patreon set up to help us with our hosting costs for the website, for actually putting the podcasts on the RSS feed and stuff like that. And we've turned around and used a lot of the funds in the past to buy new microphones, like new equipment, stuff like that. And it worked out well because Henry ended up adopting one of Andrew's old microphones. So it has its purpose. So if you're interested in signing up, patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat is the easiest way to do that. Otherwise, head to our website, which is watchreviewrepeat.com, and then there's a premium tab up in the top left that'll give you some more information on what Patreon is, how it works, and there's a Become a Patron button on that page as well. So if you are a patron, like Dr. Jaime, then thank you very much for your support. Hopefully you're listening to this as part of your timed exclusive privilege. And if you're not a patron, like I said, patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat, get on it. You also get early access to all of our regular episodes. So I think that's also a pretty nice benefit because admittedly, it sometimes takes me a little while to get through some couple hour long episodes and get them up for everyone to listen to. So now moving back into kind of the central topic at hand, COVID-19 pandemic special, 6 films centering around viruses. So the real question is, what the hell's a virus? What's that all about? And we have a medical expert here to tell us all about it.
Well, there you go. It's a simple question, but a pretty good question because we're going to be talking about, like you said, 6 different movies. Some of them really get into the nitty gritty of things, and others are like, there's a virus and it's causing this, and it's like, we'll talk maybe a little bit about how realistic some of these movie scenarios are. Obviously, it's all science fiction for the most part, but I think just going over a little bit of some ground rules. I know you, Colton, took AP and IB bio, but
it's been a few years.
But just for any of the listeners too, because I actually get this question quite a bit, one of the questions would be like, why can't you do like an antibiotic for a virus? And it's because it's a pretty significantly different thing than a bacteria. It's essentially just a bunch of DNA or RNA, which is your genetic material, kind of the things that make up you or any other living thing. It's just stuck in a little bit of ball of protein that's protected, and the way you transmit it between people to people or animal to animal or animal to people varies very differently between the viruses. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes you have this big outbreak. Sometimes it's, a common cold, and other times it's something that we can control it pretty well with a vaccine. So, again, very, very different than a bacteria. And they're not a disease because, we talk about specifically in COVID-19, and we talk about COVID-19, that's the disease that it causes, and the coronavirus is kind of the virus that causes that disease. Just like, just like HIV causes AIDS and Hep C causes cirrhosis or liver failure. So, they're two separate entities. Like, you can have the virus and not have the disease, but, if you have some, it tends to go the unfortunate route.
Gotcha.
But, they're transmitted, many different ways. Some of them really hard to stop from spreading. I was looking up to try to get a little bit more info, kind of what's the most infectious virus. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's measles, and I double checked. It is measles. It's like maybe we don't have good data on COVID-19 yet since we're right in the middle of it, but it's like probably like 5 times more infectious than COVID. Jeez. It's just like, and it really matters too, like how you get it. So, things are considered airborne. Essentially, they're sticking out in the air. You breathe it in. If you get enough of the virus in you, you're probably going to contract it. Which other things get spread through droplets, which essentially is just your saliva. So, you're coughing on people, spitting on people, and it's very easy to pick up. But it's not kind of hanging out in the air forever. So, if you've been in a room a couple hours after someone with the virus, it's probably going to be stuck down on some surfaces, and that's okay. And some viruses are even transmitted as what they call a fecal-oral route, which is not necessarily
that
just
can't be a common.
It's not necessarily just
contract that
just
shit.
eating butt, but if you think back in the olden days, it's just like everything's dirty, everything literally has shit on it, and especially you don't wash it, and that's how you get it. So like polio is a good example of that one. But
people got polio from fecal oral.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they're eating like shit, but it's it's that's how the particles, like you don't get it from like necessarily sneezing on people. It's from essentially your hands being dirty or something, and then you eat it, and then you poop it out, and someone else goes into water or whatever, and someone else gets it. So
we've come a long fucking way.
Yeah, we have. Like it's pretty impressive too. Like like no one has polio now, and thank God, because it was pretty messed up. Especially seeing some old movies or old clips. It was pretty terrible disease. But another thing we have now, thankfully, is vaccines. Pretty great, if I do say so myself. They essentially.
No, I'm joking. I'm not taking that stance. Maybe we should delete that. I don't want to get into it.
Is this a pro? Can I say this is a pro-vaccine podcast?
Yes,
this
we
is
are
a
pro-vaccine.
We're taking the stance.
We're taking
a bold stance. I like it.
Real hard stance there.
Yeah, but essentially you're just giving someone adaptive immunity, and there's two main types of vaccines. There's essentially dead vaccines. You're just throwing a piece of the virus that can't infect you, and then there's live, quote unquote, attenuated vaccines, which essentially is used to be like the live version of a virus, whatever live means for viruses, that's been essentially deactivated, so it shouldn't cause disease, but there's a small little chance or so. But that's why it's people with like pre-existing conditions and who don't have working immune systems can't always get those specific vaccines. But most of the vaccines that we have are the dead versions, so there's really no risk of getting the actual disease. So I'll be interesting to see kind of what we have for COVID going on later in terms of vaccines. But those are kind of some ground rules that I wanted to bring out as we think about these movies that are coming up.
Well, very interesting. I think I speaking at least for myself, learned a few things there. So
I did.
Hopefully,
Yes, it's very
hopefully our
insightful.
listeners learned a thing or two as well, courtesy of a doctor. So we are just going to go through these movies kind of one by one, chronological order. I guess we haven't actually said what the 6 movies are outside of the episode description, if anyone's happened to take a look there. So we're going to be covering 6 movies, as I said. The Seventh Seal is the first one. We're going to follow that up with 12 Monkeys. 28 Days Later, The Host. 28 weeks later. And then we are going to end with one that's been on the tip of everyone's tongue for quite some time, I think, recently, Contagion. And we'll certainly get into why that's the case when we talk about the film. Now, before we get into the Seventh Seal, I'm just making a quick disclaimer here. I don't think it's necessary, but regardless, I do want to say something. We're doing this episode. It's about, viruses and films and stuff like that. And it's not to make light of the current situation. I don't think it is hopefully coming across as such, but, COVID-19 is still a very serious threat day in, day out for people in this country and outside of this country. We've now had over 100,000 deaths in the United States alone. Worldwide, I think, is at least 3 times that. Obviously, many more confirmed cases, probably many more unconfirmed cases beyond that, although testing has at least expanded a little bit here, although certainly not to the extent I don't think anyone would like it to be. But, for anyone that's been affected, has, gotten the disease or even just the virus, and had any symptoms or lost family members and stuff like that, we extend our sincerest sympathies. Our hearts go out to any of you guys for that have been affected by this personally in any sort of way. So this is just kind of a way for us to, not a lot of things are coming out in theaters. Some things are coming out on television, but this is just a way for us to kind of grapple with our current times and hopefully have a little bit of fun doing it. But again, not to make light of it. But
I'd like to make it might be a very stupid statement, and that's okay if you take it as a very stupid statement.
We're listening.
But for me personally, until COVID, diseases and I don't know, the spread of diseases and infectious diseases and stuff weren't normally in the forefront of my mind.
I don't think it was in the forefront of anyone's minds, really.
Yeah,
Okay,
thankfully.
so I guess it's not that stupid of a
I think
statement.
I
No.
think for the general population, no, it's
At least not in America.
there's
or this
vaccines
portion.
for pretty much anything you need.
Yeah.
Or, you get
I
sick
think that
for-
might be
for
a
little while and you're
luxury
fine.
of might be the luxury of a first world country.
Sure.
Yeah.
But obviously, I mean, we have 6 movies. I'm sorry, we have 6 movies here that date back all the way to the 50s, and obviously the diseases are an issue. They have been an issue. But like I said, I never really paid attention to them a whole lot. So I mean, it's interesting to kind of make a catalog of movies about infectious disease, or not diseases, but viruses and such. To kind of catalog the fact that they have been, it's always been an issue. They've always been an issue. And now it just happens to be at the forefront of everybody's mind space because it's,
it's now our lives are
right.
Yeah.
more or less all consumed by it, and appropriately so. But yeah, it's definitely a 2020 that none of us expected and are now kind of forced to grapple with. And so this is how we choose to grapple with it on this fateful evening. So I think we're ready to jump into some films. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah, I was going to do a quick shout out to a website that I can show you out. Because I'm not even going to entertain the whole COVID's not a real thing or whatever nonsense. But if anyone's out there interested in looking at data, one of my favorite sites is from Johns Hopkins, the University and Medical Center. They have this great map. If you just look up Johns Hopkins COVID or coronavirus map or something, you'll see it. But it's this great interactive map. You see a lot of real-time data, and that's one of the sources that I like to go to.
Okay, cool.
I try.
Well,
yeah,
I can do you a solid and put that in the episode description. So if you're listening now and you're curious about it, episode description, you'll be able to find it there. Okay, yeah, very cool. All right, so I think starting into chronologically speaking, the first of these films released all the way back February 16th of 1957, many years ago, predates us by several decades. The Seventh Seal. written and directed by Ingmar Bergman, starring some Swedish people with some names that I'm almost certainly going to butcher. Gunnar Bjornstrand. Does that sound good to everyone? Okay. Bengt Ekeroth, Niels Pop, Max von Sydow, we do know that one, and B.V. Anderson. In this, a man seeks answers about life, death, and the existence of God as he plays chess against the Grim Reaper during the Black Plague. So there's your little virus connection there. I'm just going to open up the floor for discussion. This is obviously a film that was made many, many years ago, but I think is still very striking in its own way. So I'm curious to hear from you guys about how you felt about it, how you responded to it.
The first thing that I would like to discuss about this movie is the fucking Black Plague, or the Black Death, or the pestilence, or the Great Mortality, or whatever you want to call it. That was a fucking scary thing. Could you imagine living during that time? You have no science, you have nothing, and just
you don't know what's going on. It's just like this thing.
According to Wikipedia here, it killed at least 60% of Europe. It killed up to 60% of Europe.
Yeah, that's insane.
More than half the living population in a continent died from this plague. That is insane. That is completely nuts. And it blows my mind anytime I think about, pull it up or whatever. It's just crazy to think about. Not only do they not have science, not only do they're not communicating, as quickly as we are today. They just know that literally half of the people in their town are dead everywhere.
Yeah,
it's nuts. Anyway, so a very scary time. The people in this film are particularly scared. There's a lot of civil distress, I think, in this movie, and it's a slow movie. It's definitely it's a 50s movie. I think that they this one here is, I think, a little bit more art housey than other 50s movies, but it I don't know. It's got compelling points. I think story beats.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting movie. I'd heard about it, and it was one of those I just never seen. So I'm actually really glad we did this episode and I got a chance to see that kind of iconic knight playing against death chess match. I feel like that's a pretty iconic cinema moment. So
I feel like I've seen them dance, that final shot when
and
they're dancing on the ridge.
The dance of macabre. Yeah,
I think I've seen that before. I don't know where I've seen that before.
Right.
But that seems like
I feel the same way.
Iconic picture, or is it based on a painting or something? Or
well, I think I think it is based on the painting, the dance macabre. What? Not pronouncing
is there an actual
that right?
painting called that?
Yeah, the dance macabre. I'm totally butchering the name, but it's the same. I believe it's the same painting they covered in the beginning or earlier in the movie.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like I have seen that sort of imagery before, so that would certainly explain it. So, just chip it in. I would agree. Slow movie, not a long movie, fortunately. It's actually the shortest of any of these movies we're talking about today. It's just under 100 minutes. But I think a lot of that is just kind of the pacing of a movie kind of made in this era. And the cinematography is one thing that stands out to me about this film. I think it's a very, I said striking before, it is a strikingly shot film, and obviously it's black and white, but it just a lot of the techniques, sometimes it didn't feel like a movie shot in the 50s. It certainly has looks about it that make you realize, oh, this is an older film. But I think just one of the things is just appreciating for how it looks. I think it's just kind of the one of the first things that I kind of took to with the movie, and certainly that shot of death escorting them towards the end of the film was something that stands out as part of that. One of the things I like about it is I just find the way they kind of structure the film around this chess game, I thought was kind of the most interesting thing about it, and the way that I mean, kind of the thing is Block is trying to find find out why God is silent, why he doesn't have any sort of direct communication or direct confirmation, I guess, of this kind of higher power. And so he sees a sort of higher power of another sense and is trying to get answers to them from him. And so I just liked kind of that idea of grappling with that, just from what I read about the film afterwards.
And he's a crusader too, which is worth it.
Right.
Yeah. Crusader.
Yeah. I think it's right after.
Yeah. So it's a man
Crusades.
that battled on behalf of God, and
Right.
through his adventures and everything, through the decade of time that he lost in warfare, he comes back home, and now Europe is dying of a plague, and he's grappling with his faith. It's a really compelling fucking story. I mean, it really is. I think it's one of those movies. I don't think I got everything on the first viewing.
Yeah, I would say the same.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
it's a pretty poetic movie. And like I said, just that thought alone. There's a crusader who comes back home to Europe, and now Europe is suffering from a plague, and everybody's dying around him. And like you say, he's searching for that higher power, and he finds death. He plays but
he's trying to play that chess game to get answers from him, but even death basically provides no solace,
and it's
basically gives him no real good answers on that front either.
But in a way, doesn't. I mean, I took it as that chess game prolonged. He ended up saving. He sacrificed himself and his family, and saved that other family, right?
Yeah. I mean, he kind of. I think towards the end there, when they're playing, he kind of allows the performer, the two performers, the couple that perform to kind of get away. And yeah, I mean, by the end, they're kind of off doing their own thing. The guy can still see,
they're watching,
basically that scene of the dance macabre or whatever it is. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I had one question.
Heady shit in this. Yeah,
about
what's your
this movie. Yeah, the and you might have picked this up. I wasn't sure. So when he starts playing the game of chess, do you think that's when he got the Black Plague?
The plague.
Yeah,
I think that was Anya's speculation when we watched it. Was that basically
did he start the game because he got it? That's kind of what I took out of it, but I wasn't sure.
I mean, it would make sense because I guess how else would have everyone in that, everyone in this party by the end of the film basically gets escorted to death, and obviously it being set in these particular times, I feel like that's probably, even if it's not made completely overt, it's probably a fair implication of just how things are, and obviously now that, was it 60%,
there's a good chance that all of them died from the plague.
Yeah.
Say there's a pretty good chance, yes, certainly, that even with the run-ins with the other characters and too, just the way they travel, it's just just one thing could have set it off, and we don't really know what happens even before that. It kind of starts with him on the beach, right, and encountering death at the beginning of the movie, so we kind of don't know what precedes that too much.
I think it's also this might be a hot take, I don't know, but right now we're recording this episode during a lot of civil distress on top of COVID-19.
Yes, definitely.
And I think it's really interesting to see, because there's a lot of, it seems to me, and I don't know why it's like this, but it seems like there's a lot of polarity with a certain movement that's going on and the way people are acting and the things that are happening as a result of a movement. In each one of these movies, it's got nothing to do with any sort of movement, yet there's mass amounts of people, and certain one of them are breaking out and causing destruction and stuff, right? I think anytime there's civil distress and people are upset, I was talking about Sarah about this in the car, there's a few select people, just a few people that go out and they cause damage to shit. And this one had it had the people walking through the city. And you know which ones I'm talking about? They were lashing,
self-flagellants,
mutilating. Yeah.
They're present in a movie in the 50s. The groups of people are present in the 12 Monkeys. Anytime there's a massive civil distress and people are freaking out, right? Or people are upset, there's certain people that just lash out and do shit. And I think we're seeing it today in another movement. And there's a few very few people that go out and cause destruction and stuff, and things seem to think for some reason everybody gets lapped into the same box, and I don't know why. But anyways, that's a other observance, I guess. So I don't know, but it's present in each one of these 6 movies, which I think is interesting.
I guess just another common thread, perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking more generally. I'm not sure if we had a thought that we were trying to continue there, but I like the dialogue in this movie. Again, I think I kind of used the word heady just a little while ago, and it's I like the themes in this movie. It's not exactly subtle about what it's dealing with, but I think it's interesting, and I think it's interesting that you get kind of these different perspectives on it. And Jans is certainly not the finest of the men, but an interesting kind of character, and kind of how he's pretty kind of down on the world, and
which one is he? I'm sorry.
Doesn't give a shit. He's the squire to block to Max von Sydow's character. Okay. He just doesn't really give a shit. And kind of has a musing for everything that he comes across. He's just an interesting character to follow, and there's a nice variety of characters in this film that each one kind of adds their own kind of unique flavor to it, which I enjoyed. I would say I don't fully understand this film, but I enjoyed it. It's definitely art house. I think this is not going to be a film for everyone. It's one I've had in the Criterion collection for a while. I watched part of it after Max von Sydow passed away, I think in March, which feels like a lifetime ago at this point. I'm glad I finished it. I'm glad I went back and finished it up, because it's a great performance by him. I think it's a great performances across the board. Everyone's really interesting. The guy that plays Death is appropriately very creepy, and
he doesn't have eyebrows.
He has no eyebrows. That's what it is, but yeah, it was a compelling watch overall. Even if I can't pinpoint exactly what it is, that really compelled me with it. I think it's just a combination of interesting, well-written dialogue with good performances and strong cinematography. I mean, kind of just the hallmarks of any sort of good film that you'd probably ask for out of anything, any kind of film. So, and obviously to the backdrop of the Black Plague, as we've now talked about, one of the most kind of heinous viruses that has.
It's actually the
this world. So
I think it's the Google has, or not Google, but Wikipedia has it listed as the, I think, deadliest plague or deadliest pandemic in the history of the world.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it should be
no real medical treatment to speak of, other than self-flagellating and I don't know, whatever the hell else they got up to those days. So yeah, it was pretty much hope for the best or die.
Yeah, and if this movie is any indication, people were definitely not socially distancing themselves.
There was not a lot of social distancing going on.
Someone has the plague, they're just going right up to him.
Which is just fucking crazy. I mean,
although the one guy came up to them and they're like, no, he's done. He's gone. Don't even touch him.
Stay on that side of the tree.
They socially distanced from the man.
That was
to die.
That was a smarter move, I guess.
Yeah.
At least for yourself. Yeah.
All right. Any maybe some final thoughts on this? I feel like we can probably talk in circles just trying to unravel this. I guess before I actually ask that question, I will say that I think Ingmar Bergman's films is a director that I haven't watched a lot of his films, admittedly. But he's considered to be, historically one of the most recognized directors. And from what I understand, just reading about this film, he grappled with a lot of these same themes throughout his career of, recognizing God and the silence of God and kind of things along those lines. Obviously, there's some biblical stuff in here as well, with literally the seventh seal is, I think, a quote from some part of the Bible.
Revelations.
Right. So it's interesting. So I guess, for us, for anyone that happens to catch it, it's on HBO Max now as part of the Criterion Collection kind of segment of that.
Wait, it's on HBO. This is on HBO Max?
It is now.
Yeah.
HBO Max has Criterion shit on there?
There's some Criterion stuff. It's not the full Criterion selection, but there are a handful of movies on there. So that's probably the easiest way people are going to have to watch this one. And so if this is anything that that sounds appealing to anyone, that's probably the easiest way to check it out.
It's a good think piece. I mean, if you
take
want
a
to
deep
sit,
dive, maybe.
yeah, if you want to sit with
Yeah.
a bottle of wine and just fucking sit there and dwell on stuff, it's a good heady movie.
I think so.
And the way it's broken down into these chunks. Like they're very, very like they almost seem self-contained within each place of the chess game is another small story piece. You know, and you can almost watch the movie in chapters like that, which is
Yeah, and I think the structure works well because you get that as kind of the framing story throughout, and then in between you kind of have kind of very different segments, right? You know, you get the caravan with the actors and the performance they do, and that's broken up by the flagellants, and even just moving on from there. There's just it goes through a few different settings as it kind of progresses through the story.
It's almost putting life,
the castle at the end, but yeah,
it's like you have the life is the game. You know, it's like each chapter is another move in the game of chess. You know what I mean? And so he goes here, he moves his pieces a couple of places. These events happen, and I don't know. I think it's just a poetic movie. It's cool.
Definitely. There's a lot going
Very
on,
cool.
and you know, and certainly one viewing is not going to get you where you need to be to really fully unravel it. But it's one, you know, I happen to have the Criterion Blu-ray of it, and I'm happy to have it in my collection. Maybe one I'll revisit in some time. Yeah, I'm very fancy, I know. So yeah, now I will return and ask any final thoughts on The Seventh Seal.
No, I think it was cool to see young Max von Sydow. I don't think I've seen any of
28
his.
years old, I think Anna pointed out to me. Looks a little older than that, but
It's pretty interesting, but cool movie. Very interesting.
Question: are we doing recommendations right now?
I mean, are you just generally saying if you would recommend it? Is that?
I didn't know if we were like doing recommendations for each of these movies as we went down the list, or if we were doing a thing at the end.
It doesn't matter if you want to. If you want to talk about a recommendation for this, that's fine. Otherwise, we can hold it to the end. I just figure, you know, when we do a wrap up, we can talk about which one of these ones you might recommend over another. But
fair enough. Okay, that's what we'll do.
All right.
Okay. So Andrew, anything else to add? Are you ready to?
No, that's about it, man. We talked about it.
Move along. Okay, Henry. Some thoughts there? Feeling good?
No, I think
right.
that's it.
So yeah, all right, moving along. 12 Monkeys is the next one up. December 19th, 1995. Moving forward a few decades. Written by David and Janet Peoples, directed by Terry Gilliam, starring Bruce Willis, Madeline Stowe, Brad Pitt, and Christopher Plummer. In a future world devastated by disease, a convict is sent back in time to gather information about the man-made virus that wiped out most of the human population on the planet. This one was added per Andrew's suggestion. I'd never seen this one.
Never saw it.
I assume this is my first time seeing this film. I'd never seen this one before last night, as it turns out. So this obviously was something that you had some experience with, Andrew. So
yeah.
what was your kind of thinking bringing it up, and how do you feel having revisited it now?
So I used to watch this movie. Used to come on like I don't know, once every few months on Sci-Fi Channel when I was younger. I'd watch it every time it came on. I don't know. I've always was drawn to this movie. I've always liked time travel. It's got diseases. It's got Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
It's got Brad Pitt. It's got
It's got Brad Pitt going for it.
yeah.
Man, yeah.
Yes, he did go for it. He went fucking ham. He won awards for this movie too. I didn't know that until
I think he
did
won the Golden Globe. Yeah, I think he was
Oh, wow.
nominated for an Academy Award but didn't win.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't know it was Brad Pitt. We're like, man, this is like a crazy looking Brad Pitt guy, and then we're like, oh no, that is Brad Pitt.
Yeah, no, it's fucking Brad Pitt. He nails it. It's fucking crazy. I bet this role got him his shit for Fight Club. I bet this performance.
Maybe, yeah.
See, yeah,
Especially
like
when he's rattling off
very
about the
90s.
fucking man and stuff and products and the blah 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 blah. He was going crazy there when Bruce Willis first went to the crazy house, to the asylum. Anyways, so I think that this movie really fits. When we were talking about doing this episode on viruses and stuff, I thought this movie fit because it's right up our wheelhouse. If it came out today, we'd probably go see it in theaters and talk about it. Yeah. But also it does deal with viruses. It also deals with different aspects of health, like like psychological shit and what it means to be sane, which is interesting. I think it's a multifaceted film, which is really cool. Yes, Bruce Willis's character could be loopy. He could be a fucking crazy person, right? He could be a time traveler too, though. It's very possible he could be a time traveling dude, which is cool. It kind of leaves you in a like what is reality, which is interesting. Like movies that leave you wondering what reality is. So yeah, he could have the time loop could be a thing, right? Who knows? Who knows what it is? I think as the movie progresses, it tends to push the idea that he was telling the truth. But it was a very compelling argument that they had going before, or at the beginning of the movie where maybe he was assigning his dreams to the people around him. The dream changed every time he had the dream.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was cool. I picked up other things this time than I've picked up in the past. Did you guys enjoy watching it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I had seen it once before probably, but I really didn't remember much of it. My dad's a fan of this film, so I'm sure I watched it with him, but I really didn't remember too much of the movie. So it was nice to go back and relive it. And it's a neat concept, like dystopian future caused by a virus, and you gotta travel. And I thought it was neat too that it was most of it was set in Philly. Seeing the dystopian Philadelphia, there's like a lion on top of like City Hall, I think. So that's pretty neat. And it had a pretty dark ending. It's kind of with some of a time loop, like him not creating it, but like the whole movie's kind of focused on him having these recurring dreams and visions that he's watching
himself
someone get shot, and it's like him, and he's trying to stop the virus from spreading, and he doesn't. So I thought that's a cool way to end a film.
See, I couldn't remember if for some reason whenever the lady meets the dude with the ponytail in the plane, and she says, blah, 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 I'm in insurance.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to blow that fucking plane up.
Oh. Well, I guess I didn't pick this up, but she's one of the scientists in the future.
Exactly.
Right.
So I thought maybe she sent herself back in time to get on top of get in the plane.
Oh, I see.
And blow the shit up because she's in insurance. You know what I mean? She's the insurance that it's going to fucking go through.
I think I don't know if that's quite right, because isn't kind of the whole read of time travel in this movie is that everything's kind of a closed loop. So like even like Bruce Willis's mission in going back isn't to stop it; it's to get information to bring the pure form of the virus so they can develop a cure in 2035. So I think that's maybe a hint that she is basically picking up where Bruce Willis is leaving off. Like, okay, now we know that this is the source of the virus. We can get the virus from this guy, and then she can jump back from. And then because otherwise it blows up the timeline, right? Obviously, that's the difficulty with all time travel movies is they don't make a lot of sense if you get too much into the weeds of them.
Right.
But I think that the idea that makes more sense is that. So
was the plane lady her future self or her current self?
I think it was the future self that had traveled back to get the sample of virus, because based on the phone call that had happened. To the 2035 timeline from Bruce Willis, they kind of had, they made the realization that, this is.
Wouldn't they have had that before, though? That's the question.
But I think just this is the sequence of events is because it's until 2035 before Bruce Willis actually travels back in time. That information doesn't actually get relayed until technically 2035. So I think that's the idea. So it always happens, but that's just how it is. Like as opposed to a reset of the timeline.
And you'll never know. You'll never know what the outcome of these events were, because this is the loop that was created.
I think the idea is that and that's why Bruce Willis has these dreams. Is like, well, it's always going to happen. Like he saw it as a kid, and then when he's filling in the gaps, yes, there's obviously somewhat of an ambiguity there of. He's crazy a little bit, and he's filling in the gaps with his new experiences. But I think the idea being that, well, that always played out that way. Obviously, like that was always him, that was always her, that was always just how things ended up being, and he wasn't able to put the pieces together until as it literally unfolded out in the airport. So I don't know. Again, time travel is messy, obviously, but it's a cool concept, obviously, and handled pretty well here.
Yeah, I think from the science side of it, it's pretty interesting to think of a virus that kills, what did it say, like 80 80% or something of the population. I forget the exact amount, but it's like a vast majority.
It's more than Black Plague, I think, in this fictional reality.
Yeah.
And, you know, if it's released in 96 and it's 2035 and they still don't have neither a cure or vaccine, that's a pretty crazy virus to think of. And, you know, that seems like almost the end of humanity. So
yeah, I saw something, I think it was like, you know, as they were doing production of the film, like for the future, they wanted technology to not, like any of the technology they've used to not have advanced past 1996's technology.
That makes sense.
It's
Like
basically a standstill for 40 years or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't look very advanced, you know, kind of the things they use and whatnot. Obviously, they have time travel, and we don't have time travel, and we're only 15 years away. I guess. Yeah. Maybe Elon Musk might have it in his garage, but yeah, a pretty neat concept. It would have to be not like a Black Plague level virus that we can't stop it even with today's technology. So pretty cool. And scary.
Not definitely cool, scary. not cool, a little scary. Definitely. It's a cool movie. Cool concept. You know, I liked the bouncing back between the future timeline and the 1990s timeline. Obviously, the Philadelphia setting was appreciated, though it looked a little worse for the wear, I would say. Fortunately, there's not bears and lions running around these days, but
not yet. Not yet. But they got there because they released the 12 Monkeys released all the animals too. So,
yep.
You know,
I liked it. You know, it was a fun, kind of enjoyable watch. I didn't quite know where it was going. It definitely was a pretty downer of an ending, but one that felt appropriate. Like, it didn't feel like disappointing, but one that, like, oh, you know, once the pieces kind of finally clicked into place, it was kind of like it was kind of satisfying in its own way, even if it wasn't exactly the most optimistic of endings. Bruce Willis plays a good lead here. Madeline Stowe, Brad Pitt,
crazy Brad Pitt
is wild in this movie. A little over the top, I think. But,
fucking nailed it, man. He's
good.
I enjoyed it,
but it's certainly an enjoyable performance.
Yeah.
I won't dispute that. It's cool.
Just fucking rattling his fingers around and shit.
Yeah, it's
and
like
his
very
lazy eye.
manic
He's
the
got
whole
that
time.
fucking crazy looking eye.
Yeah, like
it's good.
Yeah. He was good. Yeah, no, it was definitely, and it's a very non-typical Brad Pitt performance, especially coming from 2020 and not 1995. You know, it's a little bit against type, certainly, you'd say. Or maybe not. I guess Fight Club, kind of, that's still a pretty different performance.
Yeah.
You know,
it is. It's a different performance, but his
I get the similarities in character. But,
yeah, it lent well to his rants, which is cool.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked it. I mean, I think this is kind of I feel like it's the only one of the six that, I mean, it's very different from the other 5 films we're talking about. You know, like, this is the only one that I think has time travel, at least as far as I can remember.
Yeah,
it's the only one that really has any sort of futuristic setting. You know, and this is like the hardest science fiction-y of, I think, any of the 6 that we talk about, and just in terms of setting.
That's
so
right.
I like that aspect of it. You know, it was kind of refreshing. This was actually the last one I watched of the 6. And so I kind of liked it as kind of, you know, the other ones are different. You know, zombie movies are in there, monster movies are in there. Just, you know, weird philosophical movies about death and God and stuff are in there, you know. So this is just kind of stands on its own. It was absolutely kind of what you were saying, Andrew. This is kind of our shit, you know.
Yeah.
I know there is a TV show that they did a few years back.
I haven't seen anything.
I've heard about it.
I haven't seen anything on that. I think it's a little bit different from the movie, but
okay.
You know, I guess the principle stands, though. You know, if this was something that came up, you know, today and coming out today, it would certainly be something that would pique our interest. And
this also,
I think we'd poke our head in there.
I never talked about it. I never seen it, to be fair, either. I didn't know it until last night when I rewatched the movie. 28 Days Later is based off of a French short film.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the name of the French short film. But it was a story told mostly in stills, and takes place
12 Monkeys, not 28 Days Later.
Oh, no. Yeah, no,
12
I'm
Monkeys,
sorry. Yeah, 12 Monkeys. Anyways, 12 Monkeys based off French short film, told mostly in stills, from what I've read, and it takes place post-nuclear war. And they apparently they send people back in time in that as well to try to circumvent the nuclear war or what have you. I don't know the specifics of it because I've never seen it, but based off a French short film, which is cool.
Yeah, I looked that up as well, but I haven't seen the French film.
Yeah, I did see that it was based off it, but yeah, same. I haven't watched it, so yeah. I hear the Florida Keys are good this time of year. I don't know what else to say.
They're fucking hot, I can tell you that.
I bet.
Sure
It was 100 degrees today, so I don't know if they're good this time of year. If you want to fucking get cooked, maybe. 120 degrees sound good? Yeah.
I did like when they dropped. I like how the time travel was fucked. Like they just couldn't get it right, so he just kept jumping into like different timelines. It's like in 1990.
You get shot in the leg,
and then he's in World War I for like a minute, and then like oh fuck, he gets shot.
And then gets transported to the 90s with a bullet in his fucking a bullet this big in his leg.
Yeah.
Oh, you know something else I thought was funny too is they totally made reference to Die Hard.
When?
When he escapes the they put so he's supposed to escape the fucking asylum, but instead of going downstairs, he goes upstairs, and they catch him, and then they throw him in that solitary confinement room, and the guy's looking around, he's making that funny noise with his lip. He's looking around, you know what I'm talking about? And
yeah, kind of.
They look up and they say, Bruce Willis, you're telling me that guy went up in that vent and he's shuffling around inside that vent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, fair.
Nice.
I was gonna.
Didn't know where I was going with that.
No, I didn't. Did not.
Gotcha.
Very nice.
Oh, I was gonna say it's not a reference because the movie hadn't existed yet, but Bruce Willis at one point says, "All I see are dead people." And my first thought was just like, wait, when did this movie come out? And it predates The Sixth Sense by a few years, but it was kind of fun.
I'm pretty sure Die Hard predates. It is before 95, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay, good.
You're right.
Yeah, it's totally a reference.
So yes. So yeah, you're right. Yes. All right. Any thoughts on this one? Last thoughts, I guess.
No last
thoughts.
Nah.
Cool movie.
I like the fucking theme song.
Yeah, that was that theme was cool.
It's like a carnival shit. It's like, hey, we're all crazy. You know, it's
a
carnival thing. Anyways, go ahead.
All right. Well, 28 days later, made its UK debut, November 1st, 2002, written by a man that we know now for a few other things, Alex Garland. Directed by Danny Boyle. I mean, that is a fucking pairing right there. Alex Garland and Danny Boyle.
Yeah,
like that's some serious shit right there.
Mm-hmm.
Stars Cillian Murphy, Naomi Harris, Brendan Gleeson, Megan Burns, and Christopher Eccleston. 4 weeks after a mysterious, incurable virus spreads throughout the UK, a handful of survivors try to find sanctuary. This one, I think, at least speaking on Andrew and I's behalf, one we've enjoyed for many, many years, probably going back to close to when it came out. Obviously, we were pretty young at the time. I don't know exactly when we would have been able to see it, but I remember enjoying this one from a young age, and I haven't seen it in a long time.
No, it aged. It's the cinematography's aged kind of. I don't know.
Well, so this whole thing is shot on, I forget the type of camera, but it's basically like a handheld camera. Basically, like it was kind of out of necessity because, you know, basically for shooting the London during, you know, post outbreak when it's basically vacated, like they could only shut streets down for just like a couple minutes at a time, or maybe an hour at a time or something like that. And so to be able to put the camera setup basically in there, all they had to do, all they had time for was just this cheap crap camera to throw it in there. And so they just kind of had to shoot. Basically, yeah, like the only way to shoot this movie on the budget they had was to just use this crappy camera because it was quick to set up.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I wasn't sure if that was done purposely or not, because I could see it going with the theme, but it definitely kind of.
I mean, I think Danny Boyle kind of defended it. You know, it was like, you know, it's kind of got this grungy look for
and it does.
for this kind of post-apocalyptic sort of zombie film. And I've hopped the Blu-ray in, and now I'm just like, oh, did I put the DVD in?
Yeah, it's like this kind of qualities.
Because this movie, with the exception of probably the last 2 or 3 minutes, looks like dog shit. I mean, it's just an ugly looking film in terms of its quality. It's well shot. The cinematography is interesting. And the editing is cool. It's very kind of traditional Danny Boyle type, editing style. But it's not a pretty film to look at. Just it's not something to take in and admire for its quality, because it feels kind of like, shot on home video in a way. And, for a film that is now getting close to 20 years in age, it's fine.
It's one of those things where, it's fine. And it does, it's very practical, which is cool. When Cillian Murphy's walking through the UK and it's completely vacant. Yeah. It does really good because it's a practical effect. It's real.
It's haunting. Yeah. It's really, really cool. Yeah.
And for it, as long as you can, I mean, we're approaching 8K HDR, so it's one of those things where it's kind of like, it's hard to see through that. But if you can see through that, there's a lot to appreciate there, because, I mean, for that image he shot that image. There's nothing going on in the UK in that image, and it's real, which is fucking cool. I think that's awesome. And the score in this movie is really cool. I think I did appreciate that.
I'd agree with that.
But like I said, at the same time, the quality of the film itself, like the quality of the
image,
the actual footage, has not aged well at all.
I mean, I think it's initially just not only off-putting, but it's a little distracting. It is. It's unfortunate, because I think all complaints, technically speaking aside, I think it's a great film.
Yeah,
but it's hard. I think you have to kind of settle into it almost because of that. It's.
I tried to show it to Sarah, and I tried to watch it, and she just could not get into it. She's like, "What the fuck are you watching?"
Yeah,
it's like
I just think it is almost a barrier at this point. It's not even that. We're watching a crap quality of it. It's not like this is some sort of crappy camera. It just looks like that. And I think for a film that I think ultimately is as good as it is, it sucks that that's almost a hurdle in a way. I'm not going to hold it against it too much, because I think there's a lot going on beside it, but it's definitely something that's worth mentioning. Again, it's distracting. It's something you kind of have to work through. And I think it sucks because if you had those sort of shots in a pristine quality, especially those opening shots in London, man, that would be
really something.
I think you, again, I guess I am holding it against it, but I think it would elevate the film if you weren't thinking about, wow, I wish they shot this on a better camera,
If it was shot, 20 years ago, it wasn't an issue. Maybe it was, but we were
probably not as much. Maybe not as much.
Not as much, perhaps, yeah.
So
now it's glaring.
It's one of those things. That was my first thing. It's immediately he wakes up in the hospital.
That's the immediate reaction.
I think once you settle into it, it's fine though. I think it is fine. It's not good, but it's fine.
It's an interesting story.
Once you get into the story, and I think once you get into that, really the subliminal stuff, that not subliminal, but that I don't know, that there's more than just yes, the disease is rage. You know what I mean? Yes, people are these crazy fucking monsters and stuff. It's interesting though. By at the end of the movie, Cillian Murphy, you would almost think that he's suffering from the fucking rage thing.
He's
a wild man. But
exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean? It really goes to talk about what it is to be a fucking people, and what it is they were trying to cure by creating the disease.
Although honestly, not mad at him for responding the way that he did. I will say,
absolutely,
certainly a justifiable rage in response to the rage.
Yeah. But fucking Brendan Gleeson, dude,
he's great.
He's great. The bomb. I mean, that guy's awesome. I don't know why we don't see him in more shit. I could see that guy in a lot of movies. He probably is in a lot of movies I'm just not thinking of, because he was great in this movie.
Send Edge of Tomorrow. Little namesake of the podcast.
Yeah, he was.
In a roundabout way.
Yeah.
In Bruges.
He was. Yeah, he was great in that movie too.
He's great in everything. Yes, I think that's absolutely true. So those are just a couple examples. So, but yes, more things. Put him in more things. I agree with that. He's great in this. I think the cast in general is great here.
Cast is good.
Cillian Murphy's good. This is probably, I would guess one of my first exposures to him. Obviously, he's been a little bit more prevalent since. Naomi Harris, likewise.
Yeah.
This is probably the first time I've seen this movie since she was in Bond, which was probably kind of one of my more recent exposures to her. So it was kind of cool to go back and even though I'd probably seen this first, I didn't really remember a lot of it. I remembered the shots of London in the beginning, and I remembered the army coming in at some point. That's all I remembered about this film.
Oh, see, I remembered
in zombies, but
I remembered I remembered him running around the fucking the chateau at the end,
just being like the stealth takedown of people.
Yeah, just running around, just like fucking going nuts. I remember that, and I remember the shots of London. Those were the two things, and the jets at the end when they're in the little village setting or whatever.
Yeah, I did remember that. I actually thought that was from the sequel. It turns out it is not.
It is not. Yep.
No.
So yeah, fun fact for me personally, this was the first film that I downloaded on
legally.
Yeah. I'm not going to say illegally, okay? I peer-to-peer. I peer-to-peer source this movie.
Oh, my.
I peer-to-peer source this movie on, I want to say, no, it wasn't
LimeWire? Kaza?
No, it wasn't those two.
Napster?
But I used peer-to-peer to get this movie because my parents wouldn't let me watch it. Yeah, this was, I think, literally one of the first ones.
LimeWire.
Kaza, you're going way back. Kazaa, and then everybody's computers started fucking up. That's good stuff. We're going back.
Man.
02.
Oh yeah.
All right. So what do we think about the movie? We kind of talked a little bit about it, but how do we feel about it now? 2020. Does it hold up? Did it ever hold up? Was it good in the first place? What's everyone's thoughts?
It's a good movie, but like you say, there's barriers that you have to cross to get into it.
Yeah, but
there's certain things you have to put aside.
Plowing past the barriers, putting those things aside. What do you think?
Oh yeah, top-notch movie. Definitely a Boyle movie and definitely a Garland movie. It's heady. It's heady to think about. There's you can take it as a surface layer horror movie, like a post-apocalyptic
zombie
survival
movie, yeah.
movie. You could take it at that. You can also take it one step lower and continue to dig in there and to understand what it is to be fucking people, and to like the measures you go to when things aren't right or when things aren't good, and when you're upset or when you're fucking enraged, and the circumstances that cause you to become enraged. I think that's it's worth noting, and the terrible shit you can do when you're enraged. I think I think there's a lot more here than just a fucking virus movie.
Especially the whole third act. It is a
definitely.
survival movie for 2/3 of it. Of basically,
and it's a survival movie for three thirds for all of the
for the whole thing.
Because now we're not trying to survive the fucking monsters. Now we're the fucking
survival people.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. I guess I was just thinking, it's running zombies. Oh, this is scary. And then the third act is, actually maybe that wasn't so bad. You have to deal with fucking people that are arguably worse. Right. So,
which is, like I said, it's I don't know, and which is the thing they were trying to cure in the begin with, which is really interesting. They released that monkey in the very beginning of the movie, and those in Cambridge they were trying to solve. What was causing, not necessarily, they were trying to solve the rage, right? And as a result, everybody was infected with it, which is pretty cool. I don't know. I think the whole concept's fucking cool.
Yeah. Henry, I don't know if we've heard much from you, so.
No.
How accurate is this movie?
Yeah.
No, so one thing I was going to say, I feel like in the zombie genre, there's always the two types of zombies, like the slow zombies and the fast. I assume this is kind of one of the pioneers, because I don't remember seeing any the fast, crazy zombies before this. And the biggest thing is, I feel like you can't have a fast zombie. You die and you don't become an Olympic sprinter afterwards, who just eats a little bit of brains. And I don't know, the virus transmission was kind of weird in that you can get it from a drop of blood hitting your eyeballs. but sometimes they're, especially I think with the sequel and 28 weeks later, it's like sometimes you're just like all covered in blood and shit, and like you're fine. So it's kind of a weird, like when you actually get infected, and it's not like a Walking Dead where like everyone's infected, so as soon as you die you become a zombie. It's kind of like you have to get infected, and it's also a very fast turnaround. Like you get bit, like 30 seconds later you're a zombie. So that's a pretty quick. But I think you don't need to make, because zombies aren't real, obviously, as far as I'm aware. But so you don't need to make a realistic zombie movie. You can definitely take liberties with it. So I'm not gonna fault Alex Garland for that.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's fiction. We hope. I guess they're not technically dead though, right? Isn't that kind of
they're enraged,
right.
I guess. So yes, they're not.
And that's why they burn out. They burn out after a month.
They're symptomatic of this virus, which means that they are now effectively, rage zombies or whatever. They're effectively, their symptoms are I turn into a zombie kind of thing, as opposed to dead, reanimate kind of thing.
That's true. You're not dying and coming back.
That makes it more legitimate that they turn into Olympic sprinters and whatnot, but it's certainly an explanation. But at least, it gives them that out of, well, when they starve. Although I think they're probably lasting longer. I would expect.
Than
most humans would, absent the virus. But
I didn't see any of those rage zombies stop for any water.
Yeah, I don't know. maybe if they're drinking blood or eating people or whatever, it's sustenance. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Most people can't live off blood, but we'll see.
Okay, good to know. Unless you're a vampire.
Most people.
No.
Most people.
What if you ingest flesh? Do you get the water content from the flesh?
You would. Yeah, and it's still like
right,
protein
good to know as well.
Protein and meat and all that.
Good to know as well. Cannibalism works for some, right?
There's definitely plenty of water in meat, whether that be humans or animals. But yeah.
All right, we don't have to spend too much time in this conversation. All right, I think. All right, Henry, what do you think about the movie?
I think it's enjoyable. I had seen it before as well, but I didn't remember too much of it. Another one of those. I remember the rage zombies probably the most, but it's interesting, and I think the image of it definitely distracts me quite a bit, but I think it's an interesting story.
Yeah, and the way it plays out it's cool, and it's got a good pacing to it. It's it kind of starts with the kind of meandering walk through London, and then once Cillian Murphy meets up with any fellow survivors, like it's pretty breakneck in a way from that point where the one guy in that company dies within maybe 10 minutes of him appearing. And I guess it slows down a little bit once he encounters Brendan Gleeson and his daughter at that point. But yeah, just that whole third act is brutal in a totally different way from the two acts that precede it. And so it's interesting to watch kind of in a different way. So yeah. And it's not the last we'll be talking about this particular franchise, but we will be taking a break from it. Any other thoughts?
No, I think ready for the next one.
All right. So the next one is The Host, released July 27th of 2006, written by Baek Chul-hyun and Bong Joon-ho. Some of you folks might recognize that name as the writer and director of Parasite, the Academy Award-winning film Parasite. Host was directed by Bong Joon-ho, stars Song Kang-ho, Byun-hee Bong, Park Hae-il, Bae Do-na, and Go Ah-sung. After a monster emerges from Seoul's Han River and begins attacking people, one victim's loving family does what it can to rescue her from its clutches. Now, I didn't hear anything about a virus in that description, but there is indeed mention of a virus in this film, and perhaps the presence of one as well. This is a pre-Parasite Bong Joon-ho flick, but one that's pretty interesting.
It's good.
A monster movie of sorts. Obviously, it delves into a few other things here and there, but it starts pretty much with the bang. I've seen part of this film. I don't know that I think I rented it like Blockbuster era and never finished it or something like that. Or maybe I just started streaming it and I'm just conflating things. I really don't know. But I remember watching this movie back in the day and just not finishing it. And I wonder why, because I watched it now and I'm like, man, this movie just doesn't fuck around. Like it's
You never saw the whole thing of this movie?
No, it's my first time seeing the movie the whole way through. So
I could have swore you told me about this movie.
I think I probably started it and I was just like, this is a cool movie. I don't know. Like, I've never finished this film, but now I have. I guess I have that honor now. But yeah, I mean, it's like 10 minutes and maybe less than 10 minutes into this movie, and you get full-fledged monster attack and craziness. Really,
You get full-fledged dickhead at the beginning. Pour the dusty shit down the drain.
Oh yeah,
I don't give a shit. Just fucking do it.
The little
just like, we're not supposed to do this. Like, just fucking do it.
Pour 1,000 bottles of formaldehyde down.
By
the
the
drain.
way, that's an order. Just fucking do it. It's like, what?
Well,
the Americans in this movie are fucking terrible people.
Yeah,
every single one of them.
The one guy, the government guy, towards the end is just like
the guy with the fucking lazy, the crazy eye.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a secret. There is no virus.
Yeah.
And he's leaning over, about to get a lobotomy. What do you mean there's no virus?
It is true. I mean, even just like the guy in the the American guy in the military that's just over there, he's just like all macho as shit in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
He just loses an arm.
Like, I can do it. I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
This is good. I don't know if you originally had this, but I was watching it.
This was Henry's recommendation.
Yeah,
yes, I should, we should point that out. Yeah.
I was watching it and I was like, I hadn't seen it before. So it was my first viewing of it. And I'm like, I know it's a monster movie. And then, they tied that element of the virus in there. So the whole thing is, they say that there's a virus that's going around infecting people and the monster is linked with it, it comes from this lab. And, people are trying to protect themselves. And in the end, there isn't one. It's just like it created this monster and it's the monster. But the monster is not spreading a type of virus. But it really, I thought it was a really neat way of linking this kind of genre that we created and adding a monster movie in there in the sense that in the end there wasn't a virus. And but we got to see the part of it, that everybody reacted to.
The interesting thing I think that's in this movie is some people today think that there is no fucking virus.
Yeah, and I thought about that, and I was like, all right, I don't want to, feed into that because it's
well,
frankly...
I thought that's what the fuck we were feeding into a little bit. So like we have real viruses, and then sometimes the government's just a fucking it's just a fucking conspiracy,
right? And I think there's plenty of things to be skeptical of in certain aspects, but I don't want to even entertain the idea of coronavirus not being a real thing.
But see,
that's just
the
silly.
Interesting thing is the people that were responsible for conspiracy in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
They were the Americans.
Yeah.
The Americans are the one perpetuating the conspiracy, which I think is funny. Americans are the one perpetuating flat Earth. We're the ones perpetuating the idea of fucking all the non-virus shit, as the rest of the world and America fucking wastes away from a virus. So it is an interesting observation, I think.
I thought other neat parallel.
I think Bong Joon-ho might just not like Americans, I think. Which
I don't know if that's
I kind of got this vibe.
It was a little, it felt a little exaggerated here, but like honestly, I'm like, you know what? I would have thought in 2006 it was exaggerated. In 2020, I'm like, this might actually be spot on.
Yeah, I thought it was funny the parallel that they were critiquing South Korea for how poorly they handled it in the movie, and then in today's pandemic, they're one of the examples of like how best to handle a virus. So that was interesting because you're like, no, I thought South Korea did a pretty good job, and he's like, well, not in this movie.
Well, I mean, when a giant river monster starts snatching people and spitting out bones and shit, like what are you gonna do? So they don't know if they have a playbook for that, right? I don't know.
It's fucking hilarious. He breaks out of the fucking containment thing where he got his lobotomy, and luckily this guy's all fucked up. Like he's not a normal dude, obviously, right? So he breaks out of the lobotomy center, and they're fucking grilling, playing on the beach. It was so over the top.
But there's some real moments of humor in this film.
Oh yeah,
it's hilarious.
Like it's I think there's a lot of kind of tones used throughout the film, and it blends a few different genres, I think, in a way. But I don't know, just the style of the filmmaking here was really, really was good. It was really entertaining.
It's refreshing, coming off of 28 Days Later.
Which is a little relentless, not a ton of humor to that film, you wouldn't say.
No humor, or just the way it was shot, the quality of the shots.
That's true. Yeah.
They're kinetic.
And coming off of 12 Monkeys, and coming off of Seventh Seal, it was nice to come up into a more modern, just well shot, just the technology used to create the film was seemed nice. You know what I mean?
And certainly the CG on the monster is spotty here and there, but it looked okay.
Yeah,
it looked okay. It was
for
fine.
a movie that's close to 15 years old. I thought it was fine.
You could tell it was CGI, but it's
that's okay.
If they made it today, it would look better, but it is what it is.
Like I said, this movie didn't fuck around. I liked that it wasn't hiding the design of anything. Most monster movies is God, the fucking 2014 Godzilla movie. We didn't see Godzilla in full glory until an hour and a half in. As soon as we see him once, they shut the door and next scene. This movie is no, he's just running down the side of the river and whipping people around with his tail and flinging them across the thing and eating them, and it was just no holds barred, almost from the get go, and I enjoyed that of it. It was just chaos almost from the beginning. And I liked that, not only was there chaos in the form of a literal monster, but, the family unit was kind of chaotic in that, everyone kind of had their own role. I liked every member of that family for each kind of, they all felt like very different characters and characters that added something different and unique to the dynamic of the whole film. It was fun.
Bong Joon-ho is fucking awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Definitely top tier, maybe top 5, at least definitely top 10 directors in my book. He's just every single one of his movies. Snowpiercer maybe aside, because that really doesn't have a family unit aside from the classic characters that he's trying to portray.
I think that counts in its own way, though.
It does. You're right. But when he really dives into the family unit of I don't know, family unit of characters. Brother, sister, mom, dad. You know what I mean? Parasite, he nails it. This movie, he nails it.
Parasite almost marries that with the class dynamics of Snowpiercer.
That's true.
It does.
Way,
You're right. True. It's almost like coming to age for Bong Joon-ho. You know what I mean? He's just
life has been building to this.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I don't know. It's just fucking fantastic. This movie is really great.
This is a cool movie. It's just an entertaining movie. It's more than just being a monster movie,
exactly.
Because I think of that family dynamic, it's a unique film. It's unique unto itself. Its sensibilities are so different than anything you'd get out of an American film along these lines, and I enjoyed that. I feel like we've talked probably around Parasite. Just like South Korean cinema is.
It's fucking on point.
It seems like maybe we're just watching. Maybe the best of the best or something, but they really seem to fucking just nail it, a lot of the time. There's some really just amazing films coming out of that country, and and it's
to be fair, they might produce a lot of fucking movies just like Hollywood.
Right. Again,
and then we only see the good stuff.
Might just
maybe,
be getting the tippity top. That's absolutely possible.
Yeah. There's definitely quite a bit of good stuff though coming out.
Whatever, regardless, even if it is the best that they're putting out.
It is pretty fucking good.
Their best is in some
quite
cases,
good.
I think, superior to
the
our
best.
Absolutely,
as from America. So, and this is top tier stuff. I really, really enjoyed it, and I like monster movies in general. So I'm kind of predisposed to this kind of thing. But I liked how, again, unique it was even within that genre. Just what it did.
It's a monster movie, but I think anybody can enjoy this movie even if they don't like monster movies.
I think so too, because it's not so
a lot of humor. You got
that.
a lot of family shit. You got a lot of
probably won't like it if you don't like subtitles. That might be a bad
that's
true.
Too,
but
that's true.
Yes, it's a big bar.
Get over it, as Bong Joon-ho. Well, actually, I don't know exactly what he said, but he made some sort of reference to that.
Right.
One of his many
speeches. But I also really like it when they use a natural language, but then they switch. Like they had an American guy, so he started speaking English, and shoot, I can't remember. I watched a movie recently that was set in another country in a specific time, and it was in English, and I was like, this was a fantastic movie, but I just wish it actually was in the native language, and they were just subtitling it, and it would just feel a little bit more authentic.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. Bong Joon-ho is a Korean director. And
you make a Korean movie, they're going to speak Korean. I mean,
and I think so. And it takes place in Korea. Like
I have to read because I don't know fucking Korean, so I got to read it.
If you knew Korean, you wouldn't have to read it.
I feel like you probably encounter it more with like period pieces of like, oh, this takes place in World War II Germany, but everyone's Valkyrie type thing of like,
exactly. That's I can't remember the example I was thinking of, but
a Hunt for the Red October of just like they're Russian, but whatever, we'll figure it out. They speak English.
It's just fucking obnoxious. Make them speak Russian.
So. Yeah, I was actually no. That I was thinking
don't make Sean Connery speak Russian. You don't want that. But.
I was actually thinking of Chernobyl. I kind of wish Chernobyl was in in Russian. That's my only thing about it, but. Yeah,
but it was very well acted. That was
it's a very minor gripe with it, but yeah.
No, I can definitely get that. The only thing I was going to say is, having now finally finished the movie, I thought it. I liked that it. I feel like it kind of ended in untraditional fashion. Of the whole movie is revolving around the dad and the family have to rescue the daughter. And, they're basically minutes away from kind of affecting that rescue, and they ultimately save the other kid. But, it still ends kind of on a downer note with the daughter. It's not making it out. Basically sacrificing
I did not think she was going to
save the kid. Like, so it's a tough moment, but I liked that it didn't end on this, just kind of overly saccharine kind of ending. Like it was bittersweet, and traded her life, basically for the younger kid's life, and the dad got a haircut, so maybe he's getting his life back on track and not falling asleep at work and such. But
the funny thing is, though, is once he had the lobotomy, so everything with that character is reversed, which I thought was just fucking funny. It's like when people say I drink coffee, but then I go to sleep, or I drink an energy drink and I go to sleep. This guy, they give him anesthetics and stuff, and he feels everything. He's freaking out when they're taking the thing. They give him a lobotomy, and then all of a sudden, he's pumped up. I'm going to fucking escape. I'm going to do this and that. He completely changed after his lobotomy for the better.
He is who he is, yeah.
It was... his character was a complete opposite of what...
Song Kang-ho is a great actor. Like
he is.
Every movie that I've seen him in, I've really enjoyed. Really enjoyed his acting.
Yeah, he's awesome here. I really enjoyed his performance. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts on the host?
Nah, man.
Nope.
Bong Joon-ho just really elevates different movies and makes them a lot more interesting than they probably would be in someone else's hands.
Medical accuracy. I mean, crazy monster. Who's to say?
Does formaldehyde cause giant fucking monsters?
Well, that might be a different issue.
Not that I've seen. I've definitely worked with formaldehyde before, but I did like that in this case, it wasn't a virus because it's like throwing some chemicals down a drain. I could it maybe fucks with the animals and whatever species are living down there. But like to create a virus from chemicals is a very weird, like that doesn't really make sense. So the fact that there wasn't a virus almost made more sense in a way.
Nice.
Like I didn't really buy them creating a virus. So the fact that there wasn't one, I actually liked.
Cool. All right. Well, why don't we dip our toes back into the 28 blank franchise with 28 weeks later.
Ooh.
April 26, 2007. Guess just under 5 years after the predecessor. Written by quite a few people. Rowan Joffe, Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, E.L. Levine, and Jesus Olmo. Directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo. Notably absent Alex Garland, Danny Boyle. Although I think they were producers on it. I'm not sure how involved they were, but totally new cast. Robert Carlyle, Rose Byrne, Jeremy Renner.
Renner.
Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy was in there.
Harold Perrineau, Imogen Poots, and Idris Elba. This is one that I hadn't seen in quite some time, and the cast I think is more impressive now.
Yeah,
like, looking back on it.
It's a pretty crazy cast.
Yeah, I mean, some of these people, I think Imogen Poots. This was like one of her first film roles.
Probably. Yeah.
Who's Imogen? Which one's Imogen Poots?
She was the daughter
girl
in this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she had striking like facial features and stuff.
Mm-hmm. She's gone on to do quite a few more things since then. Obviously, Idris Elba, is great and has done many things since then that we've now seen him in.
And he's James Bond.
Rose Byrne's great. Jeremy, obviously Hawkeye and such, and even Harold Perrineau. I probably didn't recognize him at the time this movie came out, but he was in Constantine TV show. He's been in some other stuff that I can't name off the top of my head, but I've definitely seen him in other things. So
yeah, she was in
really
fucking V for Vendetta too.
Yeah.
So yeah, great cast. Anyway, is it a great movie? Does it hold up the legacy of its predecessor?
So
what do you guys think?
Hot take. I think that I enjoyed 28 Weeks Later more than I enjoyed 28 Days Later. I think that 28 Days Later is a much more thoughty film. I think it's a more I don't know. It just held 28 weeks. God damn it, I can't talk. 28 Weeks Later holds up better than 28 Days Later, although I think that 28 Days Later has more interesting. If 28 Days Later were to be remade, I think I might enjoy it more. I'm going to say it like that. If it were remade frame by frame, movie with the same
if they just did it in the style and obviously the technology and everything of 28 Weeks Later, would you like that more?
Frame by frame, shot by shot, with just a fucking real camera.
Yeah, it was, if it was shot with a 4K camera, then yeah. I mean, this is a much more visually appealing.
It's just a much more
it's more modern for sure.
I did enjoy this movie more. Although I think that the I don't know how to articulate it. I think that I think the elements of the story of 28 Days Later are much more worth thinking about. I think it's a much more, I don't know, I just think it's a lot thicker of a movie to weed.
I think it's thematically more interesting.
The script is more
pretty
interesting.
straight.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Zombie,
it's more thematically
bloody, gory kind of thing.
Exactly. I think that the thematically it's much more interesting. It's a lot more mature, I think. This movie right here, that it might be more entertaining. I didn't have.
I think it's easier to watch
with it. It was a much easier watch, but it was a much thinner film. There's less. There's less content there. You know what I mean? It's hollow. It's a hollow movie.
I agree.
The performances were fine. I really enjoyed the performances actually in this. I enjoyed fucking.
I mean, it's a good kind of ensemble cast.
The cast is great.
I guess Robert Carlyle is kind of the main character, and for half the movie,
even when he's a fucking zombie, he's a character.
He is, but I mean, it kind of transitions from him kind of being the main character to, I guess, in a way, maybe the kids for a little while. I mean, I guess the kids are probably the biggest through line overall, but Jeremy Renner comes in for a bit, Rose Byrne's in there for a bit.
I like Rose Byrne. I like Rose Byrne a lot.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Her and her sad eyes.
Yeah,
it's just so sad.
Yeah.
It's. I think. I guess just speaking for myself here, I think 28 Days Later is a better film. I don't think there's any question about that for me. I think that this is more entertaining. It's probably a more rewatchable film. I think
absolutely
one part of that is technology. Another part of that is it's just kind of it's a breezy film.
Yeah.
But I think that's also kind of its drawback for me in the sense that this film is most interesting, I think, in dealing with the aftermath of 28 Days Later and this post-rage virus world. And then kind of once it goes back into just, rage virus everywhere, kill everything in sight, that's kind of the second half of the movie. And I just didn't find that as interesting. It turns into a shit show for 15, 20 minutes. It's just pure chaos. And then that's just kind of the rest of the movie. And like it's well executed on that front, but I just don't find it as interesting as like this idea of what do we do in this world that has been, what do we do with, in England that has been destroyed by this virus? Like what does that mean? And we have American-led NATO forces basically occupying the country and like bringing these people back into the country to re-inhabit it. Like I liked that idea. I just found that more interesting as a concept for the film, and then it just turns into zombie movie. And it's a good zombie movie. It's helicopters chopping zombies up with giant helicopter blades.
That was pretty insane.
Limbs flying everywhere
And
kind of thing.
I think it's worth noting, too, they are more zombie-like in this movie than they were in the first movie.
Yeah.
Specifically after they're chopped up by the helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
They're still
That's
like
true.
crawling
They're kind of
and
like
shit,
writhing around. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's worth noting that this movie is... So where 28 days later is more like an onion. I think there's, for lack of a better of a term, there's
it's like an ogre.
Like no, yeah,
it's like an ogre with layers.
Exactly.
Of course.
There's layers to that movie. There's the zombie movie, but then there's like the humanity aspect of it. I think that this is I think it might be present there with like the dad closing the mom off in with the zombies for her to get infected and shit and then like escaping. Aside from that, I think this is mostly a hollow movie and it doesn't have those layers like the first one has. It's missing the Alex Garland fucking touch that the first movie had.
Yeah, the script's not.
I don't think it does anything super interesting with that particular plot thread.
No.
Like it seems like it's going to, and then dad gets infected and he basically doesn't have to deal with any consequences other than like, well, you fucked up and now you're, revenge is being, set upon you in the sense that, well, now you're one of them. So suck it. Like that's kind of the ending for that particular plot thread. And the kids don't really have to deal with that. I don't know. I just kind of found it goofy in its own sort of way that like dad just kept popping up throughout the movie.
Yeah,
that was such an asshole. He's just like always there and like always like killing the right people.
Like I think it could have been interesting if like this is it's a Psycho-esque type thing of this is the main character and then he's not the main character anymore. We pivot partway through the movie. I just didn't need him popping back up as like lead zombie to show up and have a final confrontation with his kids and turn the sun, but not turn the sun. Like it was kind of an interesting idea that the mom was, I guess, a carrier of sorts for it. Although I'm not sure what she was snacking on up in the attic for some time, but
beans. She was snacking on beans.
Just beans.
Lots of beans. Sustenance.
Yeah, I mean,
sustenance.
British like their beans.
The beans. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's some cool, interesting ideas in this movie, but not really executed to the level they could have been with, say, an Alex Garland type touch.
And I think it kind of shit a little bit on the even though 28 days later might not be scientifically accurate, I thought it was like tight in like the caricatures of like the EU, the not the EU, but the universe that it's set up. Where this one seemed kind of inconsistent from that first movie. So
yeah, and then there's also just the blood flying everywhere and everyone's kind of
right. Yeah, in particular this one, it's just like everyone's just like the blood's just everywhere, but it kind of infects who it you need.
Although that scene was quite brutal when he murdered his wife. That was like
that, but that was also like very calculated. And I'm just like it's very controlled for a rage monster to do like the Oberyn Martell, the mountain eye gouging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this one's just kind of adhering a little bit more to genre conventions, zombie conventions of like we need blood, we need gore, and we need buckets of it kind of thing. And again, I think it's totally like good at like that. It's just it is hollow, it's a lot of that and little of everything else, So
yeah, I thought it was it's probably scarier than the first one in the traditional sense. Like it wasn't like psychologically scary, but just like a little more like just build some suspense and like have some monster jump out. But yeah,
I can get on board with that. But I did enjoy it. I don't think it surpasses its predecessor, obviously, but I think it's it works well enough on its own merits. It's not the same movie, certainly. It looks a little better. And so there's kind of aspects of it that I did enjoy. I'll pose this question to you guys because I feel like it's been rumored for years and years and years now, and I think Danny Boyle's even talked of it. Are you guys game for a 28 months later? Like, do you feel like after weeks, like you need more of this universe? Are you done? Would you want to see more, anything like that?
Probably depends who's doing it. If it's like a Danny Boyle, I guess not even necessarily Alex Garland, but if like Danny Boyle got on board with it, I'd check it out. Yeah.
Andrew, would you 28 months later, anything?
Yeah, 28 months later. Fuck, though. I mean, they just had like a 28 months. What is that? That's
it's like a 2 trimester.
2 years and a couple months.
Mm-hmm. And some change, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd fucking see what's happening.
28 years later.
Fuck.
28 decades later.
28.
Ugh.
Keep it going.
28 decades later, they're living like Bruce Willis. Down in the
there you go.
ground.
It just ties into 12 Monkeys.
Go back in time. Find out where it starts. Find those Cambridge kids.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Well, moving on to our final film for the episode. Contagion. A whopper of a film, I would say, in this day and age. Came out September 9th, 2011. Not even a decade ago. Written by Scott Z. Burns, directed by Steven Soderbergh. Huge ensemble cast here of Marion Cotillard, Matt Damon, Lawrence Fishburne, Jude Law, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kate Winslet, among others. Healthcare professionals, government officials, and everyday people find themselves in the midst of a pandemic as the CDC works to find a cure. Boy, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Eerily familiar, I think, in my opinion.
Keep it open. It's Christmas. That sounds familiar. Anyways, I'm sorry.
I'll say I was pretty impressed. Pretty impressed by this movie. Like, it obviously like wanted to be more grounded, right? Like, this is not a monster movie. It's not a zombie movie. It's like a drama set about a pandemic and a virus that's causing it. And they give a lot of details, and I think that's a bold move because people can fact check you and critique your science behind it. But for the most part, I found it very like scientifically accurate. Like the whole thing about the laboratories and how they work. Like, I've worked in science laboratories, and there's a lot of that. Like the BSL levels and who gets access to what and
what's a BSL level?
It's essentially just like how high, like the higher level, the higher priority you have because you're dealing with a deadlier disease. So like an Ebola is like a BSL 4. That's the highest level.
Okay.
So if your lab is only designated as a BSL 2, you don't have access to certain things
because you don't have the means to contain it.
Yeah, just because like that's not what you're doing. Like, you didn't necessarily sign up to focus on that, and you.
Okay.
Yeah, so like, so I was at the NIH National Institutes of Health when Ebola was coming out, and that was a very deadly disease at the time. And that was strictly BSL 4. If you don't have that lab, you can't work with that virus because it's frankly just too dangerous. Like, if you don't have the means to like work on it safely, then you can't do it. So I found the movie focused on even like the little details of things like that, and they even explained, like, they went into some like epidemiology and explained what like R0 is and how it affects people, and so and it created a good drama out of it. So it tied in the science, and for people watching it, especially during the COVID pandemic, it's probably a little eerie to see the similarities.
Yeah, I mean, I know I watched this a little while back, so it's been some time since I've seen it, and I know I talked about it previously on the podcast. Couldn't name what episode. Again, time, flat circle, who knows what it is, etc. But like it, the first maybe 45 minutes to an hour of this film, I swear, just felt like real life. And it was just like, oh my God, like, why didn't the White House just watch this fucking thing? Like, we would have literally been better off. if they can throw away the Obama playbook
Yeah.
because they're petty or whatever, like they could have just watched this fucking film and like
Just go to Soderbergh.
as a country would have been in a better place. And it's insane to me that like the research obviously had been done. People kind of expected how things could play out with, you know, kind of an unexpected virus. And granted, the virus and Contagion is certainly worse, more infectious than coronavirus is. But like, it's weird. It's just, it was very eerie as an experience of just being like almost every scene like dealt with some aspect where I'm just like, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is exactly what's happening. And, you know, at a certain point, it kind of, again, I think due to the nature of the virus being a little bit more severe, it goes off the rails a little bit more. The death rate's higher. You know, things are different to a certain extent, but just certainly just in terms of the responses that get made by, you know, the teams kind of working on it. Like, it just felt so true to life in a scary sort of way of just being like, wow, like we almost were equipped for this. Like, you know, if a movie 10 years old, almost 10 years old, can basically predict most of everything here, and yet we're still here. It's just, it was alarming in its own sort of way too, but good film. Good movie though.
Yeah.
I will say that. Great cast.
You know what I think is interesting is that we've been fighting infectious diseases for, well, I mean, I guess since our inception, since humans have been humans.
The first day.
And to be fair, 60% of Europe has not died, so we have gotten better about it. You know, we measure our losses much lower. Like the 100,000 people die in America, and that's a big fucking deal. Which it is a big deal. I'm not trying to downplay anything, right? Yeah. But Europe, like 60% of Europe died in the 1500s. And that was their big deal. And that's a tremendous deal too. You know what I mean? But obviously our, what am I trying to say? What's that called? Our unit of measure or our tolerance has gotten lower to what we accept for like our performance. You know what I mean? Does it make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to be fair, like they're obviously like in this movie, we're talking about one disease. I forget exactly what they called it. It was like MERS 2 something. But like the Black Plague and like COVID, people didn't know what to do with the Black Plague. So like everyone's just going around literally eating shit and whatnot and like not washing their hands. And like now we're taking all these precautions and we still have just in the US like 100,000 people die, which is a lot. So it's, but I get what you're saying. Like the numbers are very different.
Yeah, they're tremendously different numbers. But you're at the Colt, and I would 100% agree with you. Like this movie came out in 2011. Like obviously we know how to deal with infectious diseases. We know like regardless of what the disease is or what the virus is or whatever, okay? Regardless of what it is, we know obviously we can make entertaining drama movies about it. Can make dramatizations about it, right? We obviously know how to curtail how it infects the population of America or the world, right? We know these things. But for some reason we can't execute them. We can't find it in ourselves to make it happen, which I think is I don't know, I think it's the starkest fact of them all. Like we know what we need to do, we just don't want to fucking do it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, consider that, you know, Jude Law in this movie is an absolute fuckwit. He's the worst in this movie.
He's the person that says,
he's a piece of shit peddling, you know, this bullshit cure. And consider the fact that our closest proxy and our COVID-19 pandemic is the president of the United States.
Boy.
And you kind of start to see how things might not be going so hot
Chloroquine?
on
Is that what
the
it's
real
called?
world front.
Chloroquine.
What's it called, Henry?
Like,
so there's two medicines, and I won't get into like the nitty gritty of it. But it's like hydroxychloroquine and there's chloroquine. They're like anti-malarial and also like anti-lupus based medicines. But like recently, the most recent studies have basically shown that there's no benefit, if anything.
What?
There's probably a harm because, you know, it can lead to especially hydroxychloroquine can lead to arrhythmias and other side effects. So, maybe just don't take medicines that you're not prescribed, That's
maybe don't listen
my
to
hot take.
some fucking idiot that has no medical knowledge whatsoever.
How about injecting, how about if we just find a way to inject like fucking hand sanitizer?
Like bleach?
How about that?
How about bleach? Just go all the way.
Yeah.
Or sunlight.
Oh God.
Find a way to...
Yeah.
These everybody has inner thoughts, right? And that's fine. You can have all the inner thoughts you want. And
maybe you shouldn't just fucking talk about them on national TV.
But maybe don't say them or tweet them out because people are listening.
From a position of power,
especially in a position of power.
Like people grapple onto within Contagion. Like people grapple onto this Alex Jones type motherfucker.
Yeah.
Listening to his bullshit.
He has a big say.
But when it's coming from a source of authority, and I think I hope the three of us can at least recognize that. Well, authority he may have, but intelligence he does not. It's there's a lot of people out there that aren't going to recognize that, and that's really fucking sad, and to see that basically in this movie as being like, oh yeah, he's kind of this peripheral character and he's an asshole and stuff like that. It's just crazy to see that person existing in such a magnified presence and basically our kind of parallel that we're looking at here. And fortunately, we're not looking at a disease or a virus that leads to a disease with a 25 to 30% mortality rate in the way that Contagion had. I suppose knock on wood, we're okay for that.
But it could happen.
But it could happen.
And that's just it.
And this could have been again handled in a more efficient way to prevent things from getting to the point where they are at now anyway. Not that things would have been perfect, not that things would have been ideal, but again, this movie is just proof positive that this sort of thing has been anticipated. And obviously there's only certain things you can anticipate and you still have to mount the response and kind of, get to the point where things are okay and patched up. But it wasn't like this was some shock of the century that something like this could happen. Not that it was not, when it was going to happen, I don't know if you could predict that obviously, but
a lot of this information was sourced from the CDC though, wasn't it?
Right. This is a well-researched movie and, Henry's kind of talked a little bit about how it's pretty accurate. And I think that Soderbergh and company and making this movie, it was, intelligently researched to kind of feel realistic and grounded. And that's because it is obviously, we're seeing it in our lives today of this is just kind of it. Yeah, this is pretty much it. I think one thing I noticed was social distancing came in pretty late into the game in the movie, certainly too late compared to where it did for us and where it should have been anyway. But
it's like step number one. It seems like step number one is social distancing.
Yeah. And to be fair, they're different viruses, so people were getting very symptomatic pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's true. It was quick.
A lot of people who have the coronavirus but haven't developed all the symptoms of it, so they really don't know. They might just be spreading it. So that's kind of the good news and the bad news of our current situation.
And that's
some people aren't getting
28
sick.
Days later, that lady was asymptomatic. She, aside from her bloodshot eye,
she had the immunity gene or whatever they wanted to go with.
Yeah, but she was a carrier,
Yeah.
And that's something that people don't. It's hard for people to understand that. You can not display any symptoms and still carry the fucking thing.
Yeah, that's probably the toughest part about this pandemic too, in particular.
Is that you could carry it and not display any symptoms?
I think so, just because I could be fine, I could be talking to you and I'll be I'm safe, we can go and we could share beer, but maybe I have the virus and I'm just not showing it and I'm actually spreading it to you and you might develop it or you might pass it on to somebody. So I think there's a lot of fear and unknown, which unlike
now, here's a question I've grappled with myself. Now maybe we're getting off in the weeds, so I don't, it is what it is. But if I have COVID, or not COVID, but if I have
the virus,
if I have the virus, right? But I don't. So I might have the virus, but I don't have the disease. Is that it? Is that what makes me asymptomatic? What is
essentially, yeah.
What is asymptomatic?
Like you have the virus, so like if someone tested you, you'd come up positive, but you're completely fine, and that's happened to some people. Or you have very mild symptoms, like you have a headache, or you have a slight cough, but you're mostly okay. Like you got a flu or cold.
What makes it that way? Like what?
Yeah.
What is it? Am I immune to the disease?
Yeah. Not necessarily, and that's something that we still don't quite understand, is like why it affects some people so much more. Obviously, some people have pre-existing conditions and they're just less able to fight an infection, but we've seen weird things happen in kids too with coronavirus. So it's a very weird, and I think in the future we're going to study it, and it's going to be a very interesting virus and what it does. But there's a lot of stuff that it does that we just still can't explain exactly.
Yeah, and that's obviously what's worrying right now is they're trying to unravel what it is exactly we're looking at. But that was always something that if something like this came along, like you can't anticipate that necessarily of like the ins and outs of what the specific virus is and how to handle that. But it's more just the procedures in place to prevent the spread and stuff like that I think are kind of like the things.
They're important.
Like Contagion,
right.
or was timely in that like it was just like these are the things that are going to happen to necessarily come along in such a situation. So it's again, I just kind of keep going back. Like it's alarming that we basically had this exact situation more or less mapped out in terms of just responses, almost a decade ago, and yet we were still kind of behind the curve in many ways.
Right.
But
yeah.
Anyway, I guess just pulling back a little bit, talking about the film itself. I like Steven Soderbergh a lot as a director. I like his style. I think his style here works really well for this movie. It's almost clinical in its own sort of way, and his filmmaking style, but it works really well for the subject matter. I like that the film doesn't necessarily focus on any single character. Like it is very much an ensemble cast where anything can happen with any of these characters. I mean, Kate Winslet, man,
yeah,
like that was a fucked up thing.
Dies, and like that's very real even today. But
yeah. Absolutely. And you see it with COVID. The people going up against it, head on. Unfortunately, it's wreaking a havoc on them, and so yeah, and just more than that, it spans a lot. Marion Cotillard's character, and basically gets kidnapped for the second half of the movie or something like that, right? Basically as kind of this play to get the village the vaccines first and stuff like that. And Matt Damon has an upfront experience with that with his wife, with his stepson kid, and basically protecting his daughter and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, it was just really interesting to see so many perspectives on this one thing, so many different characters, different walks of life, having their own kind of run-ins with this thing that kind of unites everyone.
The fucking prom in the fucking living room.
Yeah. That's very timely too.
It's pretty
spot on.
I mean, how many proms happened this past school
proms,
semester?
graduations,
I would
all
guess
that.
not too many.
It's I don't know, man. Something to come out in 2011 to be like factual in 2019
that's
or
spot on,
2020. You know what I mean? It's when this came out in 2011, people probably just took it as an entertaining movie with.
Yeah.
I worked at a theater when this came out. I saw it when it came out, and I was like, "Oh, that was cool."
Right.
Like I enjoyed it. Like, oh, that was like a tight, well-made movie, and it still is.
But now it's fucking
now
fact.
It's just takes on this
very
totally different lens. Yeah. It's different. It's different watching this movie in 2020 than 2011.
Yeah,
certainly.
It's and I don't think
Siri. Henry said
I don't think that can be said for a lot of films.
No.
And I don't know. It's a hard thing to process because it's emotional. It's an emotional movie.
Yeah. It gets very personal. Like with Matt Damon and his family.
Yeah. His wife's fucking cheating on him. She's the one that contracted the virus, cheating on her husband. And then there's all sorts of
Space to
stuff in this
Zero.
movie. There's all sorts of
Yeah,
shit.
it
Now
is.
it's incredibly relevant because now there's a virus getting spread around the world. And now people are celebrating prom in their fucking living room.
Yeah, I think even the ending of this movie, I think it's haunting in its own way. But it's this pullback of like, well, how the fuck do we get here, kind of thing, and it's just like this kind of chance occurrence of just weird events that just ultimately kind of result in this mutation type virus that I don't know. I enjoyed how it kind of was it a bat and bat shits and something, and then the some sort of animal eats
The pig,
that,
right, or something.
and the pig, the pig gets slaughtered, and then the chef that's making it is just like, fuck it, I don't need to wash my hands, and goes and shakes
But
hands.
that's just how it happens.
Gwyneth Paltrow, maybe.
But then, I mean, like
the craziest thing, maybe it's just like cancers and everything else. But like, how is anything in this movie any different than anything that's ever happened in the past? Like, how does the shit
I
change?
mean, that's exactly how it can happen. Yeah.
But and that's what's interesting. The shit's so like everything about our dichotomy is so like dynamic. You know, like I don't know. It's just it's a really hard thing to wrap your head around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I feel like after this pandemic, there's going to be so many movies and TV shows and pieces about it. Obviously, like right.
Michael Bay's already on it.
Oh yeah.
Literally, that's not even a joke.
But,
he's literally on it already.
God damn it. But to create this movie before even experiencing something like this, I think that's pretty impressive.
See, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Before this, there was
there's like things on a smaller scale. Like there's bird flu, there's Ebola. Go way back when to like the Spanish flu, but this one just like
there's always been
was
things,
close
though.
enough in
Before that,
timing.
you're talking about polio or the measles. The measles is like 5 times more infectious.
Yeah.
You know, there's always been throughout history. There's fucking bubonic plague killed 60% of the fucking world. There's always been things.
Right. And there'll probably be a next one.
There's going to be a next one.
Coronavirus is not.
And that's just
coronavirus is not going to be the last thing.
It's not going to be the last thing, and that's just it.
Well, you hope it serves as a warning
Exactly.
of like, hey, get your shit together.
Get your shit together. Something pops up. Fucking stop. Take 5 minutes and stop.
Mm-hmm.
And that, people want to talk about the economy and they want to talk about this and they want to talk about that. The moral of the story is just fucking stop for 5 seconds. You take a 5-second breather and it can halt a lot of shit. And that's just it. I mean, I've said it since the beginning of the fucking corona. If America just took a 2-week fucking halt, dead stop, 2 weeks, stop everything, stop for 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, I would stop it. Like, if no one, if everyone, like, completely isolated for 2 weeks, because that's what we think, like, the infectious period is, then it would stop. Like, we tell people when they've come in contact with someone, like, quarantine yourself for 14 days, and afterwards, if you're not having symptoms, go back to what you're doing.
But you know what? You know what happens? People say, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. I'm blah, 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 blah. We're going to post. We're going to trickle it. We're going to trickle it. And then I'm slowly going to stop things. Slowly stopping things makes everything so much worse. More than just
not the same.
Dead halting 2 weeks. And I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, better than doing literally nothing at the same time. But yeah, it's in theory, that's the idea. But
I don't know. I don't run
for a capitalist country. That's not exactly how things are going to play out.
And it was interesting. You take like India. And I know I'm getting off in the weeds. We're getting off into the.
It's quite all right.
But you take India for example. Okay, India's like population concentration
incredibly dense
is so much more than fucking America.
Yeah.
Okay, now there is something to be said about what's being reported coming out of the country.
Testing, yeah.
Okay, but they say it's way, 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 way less than where we're at in America, and we are spread way the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, but they were beating people in the streets with sticks. Hey, get the fuck back in your house, and they're beating them with sticks. So I don't know, but I'm going off on a rant. I've had some wine. So. I just think
That's okay.
I think I agree with the host director on like
Lawrence Fishburne.
Bong Joon-ho. I agree with Bong Joon-ho's
the
perception
host, yeah.
of Americans. I think for largely, that's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, that's fair.
Again, like I said, I would have thought differently in 2006. Now I'm not so sure.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, sorry. Did you have some thoughts on it?
I was just gonna say the one thing that did infuriate me, but was like the turning point of the movie was when one of the scientists injects herself with the vaccine.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that, Henry?
So like,
she said,
I don't know, like, so like she brought up a good example of like this well-known scientist, Barry Marshall. I was supposed to see him in a conference, and then it was like I had my graduation the same day. But he's well known because he discovered that stomach ulcers are caused by bacteria, not just like stress or all the other things that people thought of back in the day. But he like
ulcers aren't caused by stress?
No, like they're called stress ulcers, which is like very misleading. But like the majority of stomach ulcers, not the majority, but like a good portion of them are caused by like one specific type of bacteria. And if you treat that bacteria, if you treat that bacteria, you're good. So that's what he did. He injected him. He like had a pretty good suspicion. He injected himself with that bacteria. He treated it, and he was fine. So that's a very bold move that worked out in the end because he won a Nobel Prize for it. And it worked out in Contagion. But I was just thinking, like, man, all the other people that like injected themselves with something and then it's like fucking died or whatever. It didn't work out, and we don't know their names. So I would not condone skipping all the trials that we have in place for research and just injecting yourself with your medicine, your drug.
So here's the question. This is going to be, maybe you might not want to answer this question. That's okay too. So there's talks about fast laning a fucking vaccine for the corona.
Yeah.
Do you take the lack of tests and everything else?
Yes.
And do you get vaccinated for the corona?
So from what I understand, and I haven't worked in like vaccine production myself, but the green lighting and the like speeding up of the process of it is really, it's not taking shortcuts. It's just like anticipating what's going to happen and like having the production line be set up so that when someone has something ready, they can just produce it faster. So from my understanding, It's like you're just anticipating your needs and being ready for it. You're not necessarily taking shortcuts.
So it's not necessarily taking shortcuts in the development of the vaccine.
Yeah, and the testing of
it's fast laning the production of the vaccine.
It's like, you need to like, someone needs to test the safety, someone needs to test how well it works, and someone needs to like find out how to produce it, and like people start working on it at the same time so that you're not, so it can essentially like get streamlined a little bit faster.
Got you. Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are run, for some time here now. I'll ask you guys any final thoughts on Contagion, particularly as we wind down with this episode.
No, really solid movie.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah. Watch it.
Yeah, especially now.
Out of everything that we've talked about tonight, I think this is the most relevant film that you could watch.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, I was gonna. This probably brings me to kind of just a wrap up for the episode in a way. In terms of, overall recommendations, final thoughts on the 6 that we've watched, like, where do you guys stand? I think Contagion is, I think for me, it's a must watch, like, of any of these 6, like, see it as soon as you can. Like,
so relevant.
It's alarming and it's so relevant and it's interesting. It's, it's fascinating in its own sort of way. And, for these times, like, I just think it's something that's kind of a really compelling watch and a good film in its own right. Again, 2011, it was absolutely a good film still, but like now it just takes on this whole new level, whole new dimension to it, which is just, many different emotions I think are appropriate to it. But other than, Contagion, I think we can probably have a group recommendation on that of, hey, check this out. I'm not sure where it's streaming. I think I watched it through Cinemax, which is
it's on HBO and HBO Max.
Oh, that's
well.
right. That's right. It is on HBO now. When I watched it, it was on Cinemax, and I did notice that it had moved to HBO. So HBO Max, another one to watch on there. So
fucking HBO Max has like everything.
There you go. It's got two of our 6 already. So maybe
that's true.
Maybe we can get them to
Showtime has 12
podcast.
Monkeys.
Yeah.
Showtime had 12 Monkeys. By the time this goes up, unfortunately, we'll have left the service. So I'm not sure when that will be up on any other platform, unfortunately. I think 28 Days Later, also not streaming. The Host is on Hulu. I know that for a fact.
Yep.
And 28 Weeks Later, I'm not 100% sure if that's streaming anywhere
I don't think
either. So sorry, some of these might be a little harder to track down. Maybe look for some Blu-rays or
Apple TV will direct you to the right
Kazaa or whatever.
They'll also fucking let you buy it for $3.99 for rent it.
Yeah, you can rent it.
So yes. So Contagion or otherwise, what are you guys' recommendations overall based on the kind of 6 that we had the opportunity to talk about tonight?
So the Seventh Seal, I would say that the Seventh Seal is recommended if you would like to feel like an intellectual person. And drink some wine and just enjoy, or drink some beer. You could sip on some beer or sip on some wine, and think about the content of the film. It's a very heady piece, probably the most thought-invoking piece, like just morally and intellectually and everything else. It's I don't know. It's just a thought-invoking film. 12 Monkeys, I would recommend. I think it's a well-acted film. 28 Days Later is a well-written film. But there's a lot of barriers there with the way it was shot. It's different. The Host is a well-written, well-shot film. I think it's probably the most, aside from subtitles, I think it's the most
approachable
film. I think it's an entertaining thing. I think it's well acted, and I think it's well written. 28 Weeks Later is a hollow film, but I do think it is an entertaining one. I think if you just want to watch a horror movie, you could just watch 28 Weeks Later. I think it's brutal and stuff. It's totally fine. And then Contagion is the most relevant film, the most dramatic, the most relevant. Most grounded, and it is thought-invoking in the fact that it is a relevant film. So that's my rundown on the movies that we watched.
Very nice. Henry, where do you stand kind of overall? Movie by movie or otherwise? I mean, kind of.
I like this selection a whole lot because I had seen maybe half of these movies before, but none of them that recently. Actually, I had seen 28 Days Later pretty recently, but aside from that, these, like, I hadn't seen these movies in a while, and so going back through them, I mean, we're all, for the most part, quarantined at home, so if you're not too busy, you might have a little bit extra time, so I think these are very 6 solid movies. They're very different movies, too, so they're all themed about viruses and pandemics, but they're very different genres. So I think you can watch all 6 of them and not get too tired. So I think they're all solid. Some of them are better than others. I think, like we all just mentioned, Contagion's very solid and also just very timely film. 28 Days Later is a classic. The Host is less so on the virus, but just a fantastic movie. And 12 Monkeys is great. And The Seventh Seal I hadn't seen before, and I'm glad that I did. I think it's a interesting and classic movie, just from all those, just the dancing shot to the playing chess shot. Very iconic film, and I feel like a smarter movie person for having seen it.
Yeah, I can definitely get that. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the diversity in the films. You just said that. I think I might have said something along those lines earlier. There's a lot here. You have that through line with the viruses, but these are all different genres, just totally different films, again, spanning many decades. There's a lot here to like. I'm glad that I sat down and watched all of these. Not a bad one of the bunch. So I guess this is more for me, just final thoughts. And I really enjoyed the experience of watching these films, talking about them. I know we just mentioned kind of where some of them are streaming. So I think anyone that's listening to this, if any of these sounded interesting, I guess we kind of went spoilers on all of them without any warning. Sorry about that. But they've all been out for some time. I think that all these are worth watching in their own respects. And some are going to be more appealing than others, just depending on kind of what it is you're looking for. Contagion, I think, is absolutely 100% agree, the most relevant, the most timely. I would say if I had to recommend anything, go out of your way to watch Contagion when you can, because it really puts things into perspective in an eerie sort of way again. But other than that, there's not a bad one here. 12 Monkeys is good. Maybe the Host, maybe the most approachable of the other ones, but really I think you can find a lot to like here. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to either watch these before listening, or maybe you're feeling inspired, go back and try to watch some of these. I think that'd be good. Or you're just hanging out and listening just because you don't have anything else to do, and honestly, that's quite all right too. So yeah, I think that might about do it for our coverage this evening for our COVID-19 pandemic special. Unfortunately, I think that doesn't seem like any vaccine is quite in the pipeline just yet, but hopefully this is the only pandemic special we need to put out on the podcast. Hopefully we can, return to a sense of normalcy in some time, hopefully sooner rather than later, and, put this kind of weird, dark chapter behind our lives, behind us. But
2020 is all fucked up for sure.
It's definitely it's a bit of a train wreck, bit of a shit show. But it is what it is. We're all coping best we can, and here's a couple hours of us coping, and then kind of working through it, and living our lives, consuming some virus adjacent films and such. So I don't want to progress this podcast too much. But what would do me some good?
What's that?
What would do you? Tell us. What
Studio Ghibli could do me a lot of fucking good.
Is that what you need right now?
Need some lighthearted shit.
I need some soul food. Like, even if I cry because I just feel so happy, I would enjoy a good cry because of happiness. Like, Studio Ghibli could do me a lot of fucking good.
The good news is Studio Ghibli movies, except for the most dark of them all, Grave of the Fireflies, are on HBO Max. So
yeah, aside from that one,
unfortunately, that's one we've already covered, so we wouldn't need to go back to that one. So yeah, I think that's absolutely something we should tee up for another bonus episode in the future. Why don't we go ahead and wrap it up there? Any other last minute thoughts before we say sayonara?
No, I think that was a lot of fun to go through these movies, think about everything in the context of what's going on today, especially. So very apt. All
right. Well, then, in that case, thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, spread the word. Whether you're listening as a Patreon supporter or you're listening to this on the regular feed, we greatly appreciate you tuning in, listening to us talk about 6 movies. It's a lot of movies, very different movies, but a fun episode, I hope, for everyone to listen to. If you are interested in catching our next bonus episode with the rest of our Patreon supporters, just head to patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat. $2 a month gets you access to that, along with early access to all of our regular episodes, so we highly encourage that. Otherwise, we'll catch you on our next regular episode, whatever that may be, based on when you're listening to this. Hard to say. We don't know what's coming out for the next couple months, so it's a hot mess regardless, but our website is watchreviewrepeat.com. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we are at WRRPod. We are on Facebook if you just search for Watch Review Repeat. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, don't want to talk about anything you've watched or anything like that lately, just send an email to us, watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. Our intro and outro track is Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. very, very special thank you to Dr. Henrique Jaime for joining us, enlightening us, providing some medical facts, laying down the law, not the law is a little bit my area, I suppose, but giving us some actual cold hard facts, talking about viruses, giving us some medical accuracy with some of these films. Granted, they're films, they're not meant to be 100% accurate, anything like that, but and a really, really unique, interesting perspective, and I'm glad that Andrew and I were able to have you join us and talk about these things on this particular episode. So really big thank you from both of us. So Andrew, why don't you go ahead and take us out?
Take care now. Bye-bye then.